Welcome, everybody. It's Comics Karma. It's the Sequential Artists Workshop. I'm Tom Hart, and
I'm Lauren Weinstein. I'm joining you live from Donegal, Ireland.
oh, come on. So you're staying then? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I'm not coming back.
Okay.
I'm just gonna camp out in my friend's dad's office where I am right now.
And and again, you've mentioned why you're there. You're interviewing somebody who is a character in your book.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I didn't really make this trip was intended to be a 50th birthday trip with three friends from high school, but it happened to coincide at exactly the moment when I'm trying to work on the last two chapters of this book. And I've got all the major ideas ready, but I know that they're out of order. And so I just realized like I'm with three friends that all go into the characters that I'm basing the characters in the book on. So there were just certain things that happened with like the social structure of especially the way the boys treated the girls in eighth grade, that are endlessly fascinating to me. And everybody's got a different take on it. And how did these boys have so much power? uh, Even with teachers, like, and we were supposed to be in this post-feminist world, and so we're just talking about all these things very casually on these incredible walks around. And my friend Jenny, who one of the characters is kind of based on, ended up being an eco-feminist, and I think a lot of these formative experiences have changed her. But so as I've been on this trip, I brought two notebooks. One notebook is this little one here where I just take notes on what everyone's saying, just, and then the other notebook, oh, and then on the other side, I haven't done this part yet, is the other side is a place where I can lay out pages if I feel even in that ready to do that.
From the conversations and things like
Yeah,
that.
or not from the conversations, just for the book. Like there's scenes that I want to remember. And then I brought, these are just all my sort of note-taking skill
You're gonna
things. And then,
you're gonna show things. I'm gonna audibly describe them too
oh
for
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
podcast
So
listeners.
one is a dot grid and a
Okay.
graph paper. And then this is an accordion book that I'm trying to do like journal entries from every day, trying to like take down, kind of what we see. And then I figured I'd meet people. Oh, I did a drawing of like the pub that we went to yesterday.
So these are
Um,
pen and ink, and the previous ones were watercolor. Wow.
yeah. And so I'm just trying to take, oh, and then hear all my friends talking. So I actually also just want to give
Watercolor.
gifts of gifts to people while I'm here, so I could do this sketchbook, you can rip the pages out nicely. So, but anyway, all of these ideas have been floating around my head, and then very disoriented with time here. But at 6 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I just wrote an outline of the last three of the end. I just typed it all out. Like all of these little fragments had been in my head. And so I woke up and then I went back to sleep, and I woke up at 11 o'clock and it didn't bother any of my friends at all. They're like, oh, good morning. Here's some coffee. So, so it's been
So
great.
you've been working on this story so long, but that ending hasn't been there.
Well, it just has never kind of congealed in my brain. Like I have all these threads that of all the different characters, and I've written some checks that I don't know if I can cash, if you know what I mean. Like,
Maybe explain.
so like one character at one point in my book says, can I run away to your house if I ever need to? Because and at the moment that she says that to me, to my character, I'm like, yes, of course, but I kind of hate you. because he did something bad to me. And so that's a real, like, that one line indicates many things for this character, that she's
Mhm.
perfect on the outside, but obviously something's going on. And so, if I keep that line in, I have to follow through in some way.
Right.
And or I could just cut it and cut that whole part of the story. And so that those are some of the things that I'm wondering how much I get into her life, how much space I need for that story and that kind of thing. So, I'm just those are the things that I'm sort of spying on my friends here, trying to imagine their internal lives during high school. And
Oh.
and so that anyway, in the end, it will be what the book needs and not what my friends are
Mhm.
doing and what they're doing now. But it's helping to provide me with more perspective.
This
Um,
the story, if you would summarize it, right, is you're becoming an artist as a middle schooler, right?
yeah, and it will end as a high schooler. It
Uh-huh.
tracks all the way to high school.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I do think that one of the things that made me an artist is the incredible support that I had of friends
Mm.
the whole time. And these friends are still my friends. And I really want to talk about that in the book. Like I want the female friendships to be super important. Um, so and well, I don't just want a character to feel like a sidekick. I want them to really be embodied. So, that's stuff I'm thinking about.
Is the character you say, yes, you can come to my house, but I kind of hate you, is that one of your friends here in Ireland?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. You don't have
Um,
to answer.
I have combined
Uh-huh.
her character with her her reality with another friend. And so what if and then made them into their own person.
Hmm. Hmm.
The thing is that in real life, my friend is so perfect that she never would have run away to my house. She always had her shit together. So I don't know. I'm anyway, I was thinking about that a lot this morning as I was writing out this outline. I was like, okay, if she ran away to my house, well, she's not her. So then she's sort of combined with my other friend that did. And then my other friend, like, what would happen if they were actually combined human beings? And, you know, I mean, this character has already existed in my book for a long time. So she's her own person at this point. But anyway, it's interesting kind of going between these two realities. And it's interesting being here and sort of spying on my friends and kind of working at the same time as I'm fully enjoying myself and being on vacation. But I don't know, as an artist, are you ever really on vacation?
No, I mean that's what they say. I don't believe anything anymore because of fascism and everything else.
Yeah.
And I just think everything's up in the air. But I used to believe, no, you're never really not working. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing, yeah, well, with that is like, you forget that you're American and people might hate you. But I don't think they hate. I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't think it's like that at all. It's just, it is a weird time to be out in the world and looking back to have this international perspective.
But yeah. All right, we'll cover that
That's
probably
that's another episode.
for sure. Um, uh, and I'm just so grateful that we're getting this sort of live blogging, tweeting, whatever, live look at your process as you finish this book. That's
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
really,
I like it too.
really
It's
interesting.
talk about accountability.
Yeah. Um, and are you still, and this will be my last question, do you still have a deadline of this year sometime, like the fall or something, I think you said?
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, the fall, I think I could do it. Like, so the other amazing thing, I do feel like a princess when I'm talking about all this stuff, is that um after I get home, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to Yado.
Right.
So I can actually take all the fragments I have and actually flesh them out into the end there. So I actually have the time and the space to do what I want.
You definitely have a charmed 5 or 6 weeks happening right now. So
Yeah.
we'll let you soak that in, and the good sunlight that you're soaking in right now too. Um, all right, well, let's bring on Emil Wilson, who had a question. And Emil, I I could read the first sentence of it because I know that question is kind of morphed, or would you like to just come on and give us version A and then version B if there is a version B?
I'll, yeah, I just want to explain it because I feel like this is a question I ask.
Okay.
I've thought about a lot. So I was at a writer's retreat a few years ago, and there was this writer who was talking about her process of finishing a book. And I raised my hand, which I never do, and I said, "Well, how do you know when a book is finished?" And she said, "Well, I hear a bell. Like an alarm goes off, a bell goes off in my head. And I just know that at that point, I'm done with this project. I've done all I can do. Thank you so much for your question." And I said, "Well, hold on a minute. What happens if you don't hear a bell? Or more accurately, what happens if you've never heard a bell before? What happens in that case?" And she was like, "Well, I don't know how to help you. I mean, you've got to know when it's finished." And I just thought, okay, so okay, I don't know what to do now. And so it's just been one of those questions, and I'm not talking about finishing a project that has a deadline. I feel like deadlines throw everything into a different place. But just like, comics has so many aspects of like art and text, and what happens if one is finished and the other isn't? Um, what are the things that keep us from finishing stuff? Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious what that question does for your thinking, and how do you know? Like, how do you know? So
All right. Well, I mean,
I
the
feel like
obvious.
you're better at answering that than I like when I got that question, I was like, I feel uniquely unqualified to answer this question. But
oh, like what have you felt when you've what do you feel when you feel like something is finished? Like
yeah,
how do you gauge that? Because you've obviously finished.
yes, I've finished things before. But you know what? It's always anticlimactic. It's
Sure.
always just, I mean, I've really only finished things because there was a deadline. There's always a deadline. But then there's an extra deadline with comics, which is sometimes, you show your originals in some way. So then what's a finished original, at a gallery setting? And do those count? And I say they do. Like I love making pieces that feel like fine art, but that's different than the way a lot of people work. Um, there's like finishing a page versus finishing a whole story. I would say that there's no bell in my head.
uh,
Often it's
Definitely my
people.
question to you. I was gonna ask if you had ever heard a bell ever.
I've never, I mean,
I've never heard
sometimes I
anyone
just,
hearing a bell. Go ahead. Sorry.
sometimes, I mean, okay, I know kind of what the process is. You basically finish a story, you get it almost done, and then you turn it in to somebody else and you sit on it for a little while, and then they give you edits, and then you finish those edits, and then you turn the whole thing in. That's the anticlimactic part. And then maybe there's like a big breath like that you can take. You feel like it's done, but like,
But Lauren, do you ever get to a place where like you think you're finished, and before you send it out, where it's like you're rearranging the furniture over and over and over and over. Like I feel like there
yeah,
are times with the thing that I was working on where I just would go through it, and it would take a whole day of like moving a text block a quarter of an inch and
oh yeah,
changing that word out and looking up thesaurus. And at some point you're just like, I'm not change I'm this isn't getting better, it's just getting slightly different. So
yeah, yeah. When you're doing that, you want to stop doing that. Or as much as like the different Yeah, well, and that's true. And sometimes you think it's going to make it better and then it doesn't make it better. But you probably had to do that to realize that it wasn't what you needed to do. Yeah, when you're just rearranging furniture, probably not great.
There's a lot, there's a lot going on here, right? So there's like, well, there's the idea, well, there's a little perfectionism, I think, going on there when you're rearranging
Yeah.
furniture. You're like, this can be more perfect. This can be more perfect. And thank God for deadlines, right? Because a lot of us would just rearrange the furniture forever unless we have some other bell in our head which says, dude, you've been rearranging the furniture for 2 days. Just go do something real. Like rearrange the real furniture and not the furniture on the page because you're just going in circles. So those deadlines can really help. But that perfectionism is a really interesting issue. Lauren, I feel like you have such a what do I want to say? Such a carefree way, and it's because you're so multidisciplinary. You have such a carefree way with like how perfect everything has to be on the page, especially related to other pages. And I'm thinking first, like I'm thinking of Goddess of War, which had like etchings mixed in with ink drawings, mixed in with flat computer color, and like, nobody would say this is a really like it's so anti like YA clarity, right? Like everything is unified and easy to, it's really complex. And I know some of those prints went through many iterations, and I'm pretty sure I've got an iteration of one of those prints that's different from the iteration that's in the book. And so at some point, like when you're printmaking, there must be like, am I finished? Did I overdo it? And with with this memoir you've been working on for so long,
Hmm.
it's to me, to some degree, you're not even finished making creative decisions. Sometimes you're like, oh, this could be collage. And that was like 2 months ago, right? Or 3 months ago where
I
you
know.
made a new decision. And to me, like some of the act of like deciding is also part of that. Like I'm done deciding now. Now I'm done. Now I'm working on page 3 and I'm done with page 3. And now, I know there's so many levels of it. I'm really rambling, but go ahead.
No, I mean, you're scaring me. I don't
No,
know.
that's
No,
not, oh God, that wasn't my intent.
no,
Look
I
out,
think,
look out the window. You're in that beautiful
yeah,
place.
I know I am. I'm actually looking out the window. It's like,
Okay.
it's fine. Um, the I think
I can dial it back
I
and say
think
that.
that okay, like on a story level, first the story I feel like it tells me what it wants. And um in terms of like medium, like, or I'll be like, oh yeah, I just use that collage thing. I could apply that collage to this. Like there's some kind of visual key that I can work into. Like I'm working on etchings. Oh yeah, I can superimpose these etchings on these comics that are kind of telling the story. The etchings tell the older story. Um, so there'll be some media thing that drives it maybe, but then um the story's questions need to be answered. Uh, that maybe that's the most important thing for me. And I have to say, this is another random tangent, but um, it's not so random. Last year, hmm, when I was in when I just graduated from college, I got into this art residency called the Vermont Studio Center. And I went there and I made these monoprints. And I've been holding on to them and working on them very slowly for, 30 years. And no less than 30 years, a little like 25 or so. And so I ran into this woman who owns an art gallery, and she said, we can show these prints for you but you have to finish them. It was the first time in my life that I ever had to finish something that was abstract and not a comic. And I
Mm.
actually found that was, I still had a deadline. I was going to show this work at an art show, but I found that was incredibly helpful because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was making up when something was finished, and I was finishing it on my own terms. So I was really looking at the structure of the page and what needed to be added where. And I felt like everything had a balance, and I had to step away from it and look at it again. But these were just one panel. I mean, one page. They're just one image. So maybe everything just has a different kind of finish. Um,
You like that adage? Sometimes people say a book's never, it's never finished. It's never completed. It's just abandoned.
yeah, I think that that might be the case. I think, I don't know, but you just finished a book. You turned it. You're in the editing stage.
Yeah, let's ask Emil about that. So like
Yeah, well, yeah,
between submitting this question and today, you finished a proposal and a book, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I just sold a book about, it was about 6, 7 weeks ago. And I think it was around the same time that I was sending this question into you. I think that I was at that stage where I was just overthinking everything, and I I would go through and I would, like I said, change a word or change a hand, and it wasn't changing. And I just, as I was writing the question, I thought, maybe there's a way to reframe this question so I can get some action on it. Like, instead of saying, is it finished? Like, is it finished enough that it makes sense? Yes, it makes sense.
Mhm.
Is it finished
hmm
enough that if someone called tomorrow and said, I'm publishing this, you'd be okay? No, I'm not there. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want that. But is it finished enough that an agent, if I sent it to an agent, that they'd say, okay, this is 90% done, this 10% needs to be fixed, and then we're good to go? Or will they see what I'm doing, or will they just dismiss it because they don't like it and it has nothing to do with being finished? And for some reason, that sort of took the panic out of, is it the binary of finished or not finished? It took that out of it, and it made like, well, what's the worst that can happen? An agent
Right.
likes it or they don't like it. And so I sent it to an agent, and he said, "Oh, I'll read it over the weekend." And then he liked it, and within a week, Simon and Schuster had bought it. So
Fantastic.
That's
it was
so
one of those things. I mean,
Congratulations.
and now we're in the middle of editing, so now it's as unfinished as it could possibly be.
bad.
So you're back kind of to where you started. Yeah. Do you like
But
your
Soon
editor?
you're gonna, yeah, I was gonna say
I
soon you're gonna
I
be
love I
screaming at
love my
your,
editors. Yeah, they're great, and I think that they've been really wonderful at. And I know the first podcast, Brandon was like, I'm worried about an editor, and I
uh
think that an editor, my editors at least, wanted the book because they liked it, and I think it's their job to kind of
mhm.
elevate the work. And I think that for me, I've always taken the tack that if somebody professional whose skill set is to edit says, "Hey, change this," it's it's up to me to try it. Like, I don't have to do it, but I should at least try it to see if I can make it better. And I think that that's what's happening. And there are a few things that I'm like, oh, that's going to be rough and hard to do, but I feel really excited to try it, and I believe that it will be a better book as a result of it. So yeah, I say that now. You know,
Yeah,
call me
yeah, I was
in
gonna,
3 weeks and I'll be like, what have I done? But yeah,
yeah, I
anyway.
was gonna say you'll be screaming at your editor in a few weeks. It's finished. I'm already done. No
Yeah,
more
exactly.
editing.
This is as
Finished.
finished as I can make it.
Yeah.
Go away. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I feel like there's just different kinds of finish too.
Right.
There's like when you're finishing something digitally, and like when you're working with an editor, you're just zooming in on a specific problem and then you're fixing it. And each thing is its own little thing. Um, and you're kind of seeing how it goes in with a whole. But it becomes easier when you're just focusing on one little problem at a time. And that's different than the finish that was that entire thing that when you sent it away. In some ways, the book is already finished, right? But not really. I don't know. That's not a maybe that's not true.
Do you, Lauren, do you find in Emil too, do you find that when working on a project, there's a point where, as opposed to being finished, there's a point where you're just done with it. You're just like, oh,
Yeah.
no more. And like, but you still have like a little bit to quote finish it, but like really your foot's in another project like in the future. I get that way sometimes. And
Yes, I do too. And that's the thing that really sucks about comics is that a lot of times you have to still clean up something or do some stupid correction, and you're so done with
And you
it.
can make, I can make anyway, bad decisions at that point. Like no, I'm not fixing that. I'm not, I'm gonna,
Right.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
exhaustion at the end.
I think that I went through that a couple weeks ago where I was starting to work on something different, and you get to that stage where you love something new and the newness is what you love, and I was in that stage and then had to sort of put it aside. And I think that there were a couple days where I had to find myself falling back in love with the book that I was
Mhm.
editing because I needed to have that energy to go in and make changes and be like, yeah, I mean there are some changes that the editors have been great about being like, you don't see what we're seeing because we're seeing, you know um I guess the best way to describe it is there's a character in the book who is dying of AIDS, and both editors are in their 30s, and they're like, a lot of people don't know what this world was like and you lived through it. And on one hand, I sort of feel like it's not my job to teach history, but on the other
Mhm.
hand, it is my job to be clear so that the reader knows what's happening.
Mhm.
And
Hmm.
so I do have to go in and kind of layer some historical context to be like, you know,
Mhm.
this is what that was like. Um
Mhm.
and I think that that's a really smart note that I don't I is in my blind spot. So, yeah.
Yeah. Because
Right. And
that,
yeah.
well, those choices are for a marketplace, right? That's for like, this is going to, we want X number of readers of this kind to get this book, you know.
I think so, but I think that there's also that feeling. Somebody asked me that, and I think that I want those readers too. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
people in their 20s to read what it was like
Yeah.
to watch people die and
Yeah.
not have the government care about it.
Yeah.
So I think that there is I mean, that's not really what the book, that's a tangential part of the book, but it's certainly an important piece to kind of understand, especially if you weren't there when it was happening. So, yeah.
I think yeah.
Yeah. What about like really feeling good about the product that you're about to release into the world? That's always something. I've had only a couple things where I've had them out in the world and I haven't had any regrets.
You mean sooner or later, or always?
No, like having like a lot of my normal person comments, like I wish I'd drawn this a little bit better. That like plagues me,
Those
like
those were
Mm.
weekly and had a harsh deadline.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just like every once in a while I'd like get nail it, but a lot of times I didn't. And I just that really bugs me. But like being an artist and a mother, like that thing that went in the New Yorker, like I feel really good about that. I don't think I could have done better than that at that time. It does exactly what I want it to do. I feel happy with that out in the world. I feel like that's a part of finishing um that's important.
Well,
Um
Lauren, when you look at something that you regret that's been published, did you
yeah.
regret it when you handed it in, or was it one of those things like you were just running into the finish line and then later on looked at the footage and was like, "Oh, I wish I had changed that a little bit afterwards."
I don't know. Now I'm looking at the things that I regret and I'm like, yeah, no, don't worry about it. Like girl stories. I wish that came out a long time ago, and it was a collection of stuff I'd done for girl.com, like a web comics, and just I don't know, there's just kind of like the wrong size and it's kind of random a little bit. But I was also really young and I was rushing to the finish line, and I don't know, it's okay, it's fine. Like, and I haven't I yeah, that's the kind of thing. After that, I've been really careful about the things that I put out, like that I feel good about.
I feel
Yeah,
like one of the things that happens with me is I will draw something better than I expected I could draw it, and then it's like it fits finished. I guess I do hear it
yeah,
because I'm like, "Don't touch that. That's great." I feel like the words get a little stickier in that I
Mm.
feel like I'm constantly being like, am I saying this the right way? And I think that hangs up my finishing it. I mean,
Hmm.
the art does too, but I feel like with art, I sort of know uh, fixing that's going to open up a can of worms and it's never going to look as good as that. But I never feel that way about the writing.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Never.
yeah. Yeah, I keep the writing in a font because I know I'm going to change it a lot.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that I do keep going back and kind of nitpicking the writing too. Um, yeah, I think somebody, Sally, did you ask if people, if reading comics aloud helps it? Definitely. I mean, getting anybody to read your comics aloud helps to you to get out of that one panel that's really bugging you and just into the whole, you
Well,
know, flow of the thing. Because that's,
well,
I think that's actually another big impediment is getting lost on a page when you could be, you know, realizing that it's 30 pages and nobody really cares about that one image.
Yeah.
Emil, you sort of answered a question I was going to pose, but I'll pose it anyway. And I was going to mention that to me, you seem like a really natural artist visually. Like I think your art is beautiful,
Yeah, it's
Oh,
and
amazing.
thank you.
and you're way better at any of those tools, visual tools than me. So I was wondering how much uh, how much just getting a teeny bit better was part of what you were facing. But it sounds like that's not a big deal. It sounds like it's more the writing.
I mean, it can be. I mean, I don't work digitally. It's all pen and ink, and
Uh-huh.
I only just scan it and then kind of fix it in Photoshop. But I do feel like, I mean, there are certainly pages that I'm looking at where I'm just like, ah, that face, that I need that face is a little wonky, and I'm trying to do the thing where it's like you embrace the wonkiness. It's like I
Right.
don't want it all to be perfect. I kind of like the fact that it's a little imperfect, and I think that to me is a skill set that is sometimes hard to get over, like because you constantly want to make it better. But I think that it looks better if you kind of just don't touch it.
Yeah.
And so so then I focus on the words and then they get all messed up. But I do feel like I'm I feel better about the art just because of, and also my book is a sketchbook, so it feels really loose, and I think that that's what I'm trying to do. I don't know how people who do like paneled comics where it's a tight line, and I don't know how I would I don't know that I could do that. That's just not my aesthetic. That's not my skill. I would be too noodly and try to fix it all. So
Mm.
So you've built something that you can also edit. Like
right.
that's a really good, really important thing, I think. That
Lauren,
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, or at least mention that, like for me, I feel like I've changed as an artist so many times, and I'm not like, and so when something's finished, has been answered by different people basically over and over again. And I
Mhm.
look at some of my old work and I'm like, oh my God. But it's like this version of me wasn't even capable of seeing the things that that version of me was ignoring, you know. And so I look at some of my books with regret, but it's not regret I had then when I submitted them. You know, when I submitted them, I was like, this is good. I'm good. You know, you know. Do you experience any of that?
Yeah.
Slow answer. Maybe not. I feel like I've had a long road to competency, whereas I think a lot of my peers haven't. You especially, Lauren.
But Todd,
Maybe
have you been in a situation where somebody has said to you, "This is finished," and you're like, "It's not. I don't feel like it's finished," and what you're hearing is different than what you think. Has that happened?
Um, hasn't happened to me.
Okay.
Where I have something where somebody's ready for something and they think it's done and I'm like, no, it's not done yet. I don't think that's
Yeah, kind of.
I
maybe it's the nature of comics that are always so exhausting that it's like, no, it's done. Yeah. Anything to call it done.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. Oh, good. Somebody else is telling me it's done.
Right.
Also, I think part of my problem, I've been on this like 10-year, you mentioned the wonkiness, Emil, and like I've been on 10 or 15 or more. I've been on this mission in my own brain to sort of embrace that wonkiness. And part of that is like calling it finished before it's finished. You know, I just went through this minor, very, very minor crisis where, and I've been drawing digitally for about a year now, and like I'm kind of okay with it finally. And but I lost the good Apple pen that works, and I went through so many hoops to try and replace it cheaply. And so I just got this really horrible pen, and it was just terrible, and the digital lines were just shit. And finally I was like, I got to finish something. And so I did this 7-pager with this shit pen in, because I can't remember, because I had an accountability friend who was like, I just got to finish something. Please make me hand something in by Thursday. And and uh and I with this shit pen, and I looked at it the other day, I was like, it's kind of cool. So
It
like,
is cool. You sent me some of the
oh, did I?
pictures. They
And
look
because
great.
I
Yeah.
had like I I think all artists go through this, but I understand my own acute version of it particularly, and that is that when I'm in the middle of something, I have no judgment on it, no good judgment of it. Um, and but the window where I do have some okay judgment on it is really short. Like a couple days later, I can be working on a panel, and like 15 minutes later, I'll say, "Oh, that wasn't nearly as shitty as I thought." But for like a whole comic or a whole page or something, a day is like enough usually. But maybe a 7-pager I needed a week, where I was like, "This isn't the shit I thought it was." So sometimes I just need future me to tell past me that it's finished, you know?
I wonder if people just get finished at different times than they really are finished. And it just happens, like the work is literally taken out of their hands and, published in some way. That's like the perfect
Yeah.
scenario. But we're all talking about this kind of like, have you ever been finished before you're really finished? And but and then you have to sort of go there. I don't know if I honestly don't know when you're really finished. Maybe I will know when this book is really finished.
Well, who's going to take it out of your hands
Um, it
if it
will be
has
the
to come to
I will
that?
s- I will I'm going to show it back to the agent, and she's going to shop it. Like once it's repositioned, then it will be one level of finished.
Hmm.
Like locked in. That will be very, very good. But I often think, what if it doesn't even find a publisher? Like, what if it's not ever published? Like I kind of can't think that way, but then I also think to myself, well, at least it will be finished, and then I can move on to something else.
That
So
that's an interesting answer. It segues to a question I didn't have, but now I have. Is it only finished after it's printed?
right, I don't know. Yeah, I think
Silence again.
these
Or
are like the most profound questions.
I sort of feel like I have the same reaction that Lauren does, where I've sent in something for a deadline that I didn't think was finished, and then when I saw it printed, I'm like, "Oh, that's not so bad. That's all
Yeah,
right. I
Mhm,
like that." I think that it is what it is, and you love what it was, and you know that you made decisions based on that. But I
mhm.
just think that that's the whole control stuff right before you don't know if it's finished, where you're like, it's not perfect. It's I don't know, whatever that means. So
Yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah, and I think that the other question about finishing is the letting go.
yeah.
There's a part of you that just has to let go of it. You can't control it anymore.
and you can't.
And
If you're me, you can't control it at all.
You can't control it when you're doing it.
Yeah, I have to get the sort of. I have to get. There's always a part of me that's like, well, Craig Thompson wouldn't hand it in like this, you know?
right, right. Those voices in your head
Uh,
that are just so toxic. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I think I think we've hit an end point here because there's so much silence and staring into space, and we're just like, yeah,
Finished talking about finishing.
yeah, yeah.
But
Emil,
I think it's like, I don't know, there are all these emotions that finishing something brings up too.
that's a
It's
different
the end,
conversation
it's
too.
something new, and yeah.
So
I mean, when do
this
you learn, when do you feel that? Do you feel that when it's been published? Or do you feel that when your agent has it, it's going to go to an editor and they're going to make some change? They're going to want changes. Like, when do you feel that emotion of it being finished? Like,
Well, like at different times when I've like finished different parts of this book, I've been like, I never have to work on that again. And it really does feel like folding away a chapter of something I've been thinking about for so many years. So that's one level of like, um, and then having it in other people's hands, like, I mean, that's a more of a group effort. I think I feel different ways at different times. It's not, I think what Tom said, like it's different people telling you different things at different times.
Something happened to me that I've never told anyone. It's I worked on that memoir for 4 years or something like that, the memoir about my daughter dying. And I was so miserable for so long. And and I have a computer, and that computer has a little icon, and you turn it on, you see your face or your bunny rabbit or whatever. And I just had the grimmest picture of myself. It just said Tom, for that whole time. And I submitted the book, and I can't remember if it was hours later. I don't think it was a day later. It might have been a day later, but it was more like hours later. Submitted the book to the editor, and I was like, we're done. And like I just found myself cleaning up my desktop, and like I moved some files around, and I changed that image to this like soft kind of content happy image. And I didn't do it consciously at all. I was just like, let's change that. And then I was like, whoa. And I was like I just like changed the image of myself I see every day, like what felt like moments after submitting the book. And it was really intense. And I still have that same image now on it was 10 years later now, that same image. Weird.
That's incredible.
yeah, that's a great story.
Things like that, like like that have to happen for me to understand that I'm feeling anything at all. It's like, oh, I was that's how I know if I make some art about it or move an avatar around or something.
Right.
I hope this has been fruitful.
It has. This has been
Okay.
great. Just great to talk about it. And yeah.
Awesome. And we can't wait to see your book. Tell us about it and
Yes,
the
yes,
title and when we
absolutely.
can get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll probably be out. I think they're shooting for summer of next year. You know, I, who knows? I think it's being printed in China, so it may not come out for another 20 years. So who knows what that looks like.
Right.
But yeah, I think that they're shooting to have it next fall.
What's
So
it called?
the name is changing. I think the name is changing. At the moment, it's called the Nightingales, but I think that that's going to change. I'd like
Okay.
it to change.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So we'll look for the Nine Gales or
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure
AKA.
though I will plaster every town and country
Awesome.
with a notice that it's coming out. So don't worry, you'll be exhausted when it comes out.
That's really exciting. Thanks, Emil. Awesome. Lauren, go bask in that sunlight and go take a walk
Yeah.
on the beach.
Thanks. I'm gonna have a Guinness now and think about more of what we said.
Awesome. Okay. Send notes our way. And we actually have two more podcasts lined up. We were going to end. Yeah, I think we have two more. We were going to end with Emil, but I think we've got two more. So I'll send you info about that and stay tuned, everybody. Sound good?
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
guys.
All right. See you next time. Thanks.
Yay.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. This has been a production of the Sequential Artist Workshop, or SAW. You can find us on social media at Comics Workshop and online at sawcomics.org. There you can also hear about our many courses and intensives and in-person programs. SAW is a non-profit supported by people like you. Learn how to make a tax-deductible donation at the donate page of sawcomics.org. You can join our free community of comics explorers at members.sawcomics.org. Thanks so much for being here.